It is now 5 p.m. on Tuesday, January 13th, 2026. Welcome to the new year, trustees. This meeting of the Killeen Independent School District Board of Trustees is now called to order. The following trustees are present and participating. Brenda Adams, Secretary. Marvin Rainwater, Board Member. Oliver Mintz, Board Member. Tina Capito, Board Member. Rodney Gilchrist, Board Member, and me, Brett Williams, President and Presiding Officer. Absent and not participating in this meeting is Vice President Susan Jones. Just for the public's awareness, she is at the Tax Appraisal Board meeting, so that is a part of her duties being on the Board of Trustees, so we appreciate her. For the record, a quorum has been established and is present. The recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We're also streaming this meeting on our cable channel 17 and on the district's webpage. I'm going to pause there and recognize our Fort Hood liaison, Christine Caparco. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Where was that? A recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We're also streaming on our cable channel 17 and on the district's webpage. As a reminder, anyone wishing to speak at public forum must submit their sign-up sheet at this time. I'm being informed that we have no one signed up for public comment, so we will move on to our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 2, closed session. The board will now convene in closed session for any combination of the following, but we are going to call them all out based on time. We may get to some, or we may only get to a couple. Agenda item 2A, consultation with the district's legal counsel regarding pending litigation, a settlement offer, or other issues confidential under the attorney-client privilege as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.071. Agenda item 2B, deliberate the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.072. Agenda item 2C, deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.074. Agenda item 2D, deliberate a matter regarding a public school student in which personally identifiable information about the student will necessarily be revealed as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.0821. No voting will take place in closed session. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. The time is now 5:02 p.m. and we're in closed session, and I believe we're going to go to the superintendent's conference room. All right. The time is now 6 p.m. and we are reconvening from closed session. No action or voting took place in closed session. No action is needed. This meeting of the Killeen Independent School District will resume in accordance with the posted agenda for today's meeting. Anyone who did not have an opportunity to speak during public forum at 5 p.m. and wishing to speak now must submit their sign-up sheet at this time. A recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We're also streaming this meeting on our cable channel 17 and on the district's webpage. Agenda item number 3, public forum. I've been informed by Mr. Harper and Ms. Weaver that we have no one signed up for public forum. So we're going to move on to our next agenda item, which is number 4, information items for discussion. A, discussion of the designation of 10 non-business days in Killeen Independent School District for purposes related to the Public Information Act. Welcome, Mr. Harper.
Thank you, sir. Mr. President, members of the board, and Dr. King, we come again this year as we have the last couple of years since House Bill 3033 was passed in the 88th Texas legislative session, which allows a governmental body to designate a day on which the governmental body's administrative offices are closed as a non-business day, but they do limit that we can do up to 10 business days 10 days that we are closed that we are going to designate as non-business days. And so administration comes to you, and this is just for the purpose of the Public Information Act, and the administration comes with the recommendation that we adopt the 10 non-business days as March 18th, 19th, 20th, July 2nd, October 14th, 15th, and 16th, and December 29th, 30th, and 31st. As you see, those are kind of spread out throughout the year during our breaks to help us with Texas Public Information Act. Certainly open to any questions.
Questions from trustees? There have been no questions. Any issues with this going on the consent agenda for next week? Okay. We'll now go to B, which is discussion of the Texas Association of School Board, TASB Policy Manual, updated 126 affecting local policies. Mr. Harper.
I wish I could say this one would be as brief, but this one will probably be a little longer, also depending on questions that we receive. But we bring TASB's local update 126, updating our local policies. As you all remember, the board does not vote on legal policies. Those are adopted by the legislature, or there's case law that affects legal policies, but y'all are brought forward updates to local policy, which y'all control. Because of all of the legislation that passed this past session that affects schools, there are a number of recommendations TASB is bringing. The vast majority I will talk about are all due to legislative updates. The first policy I'll talk a little bit about is our own policy that we have also asked TASB to make a couple of adjustments to. So I'll go a little more into detail into BE local, but we'll start looking at these policies, and there are 28 updates to local policies. So I will try to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. BE local is on board meetings, and so there are a number of policies or a number of things within the policy that update legislative updates. Senate Bill 12 requires that board meetings now be outside of the typical work hour, and so you will see the update of times to 5 p.m., both for regular meetings and workshops. You'll also notice House Bill 1522 on board agendas are to be posted 3 business days before a meeting rather than the previous 72 hours. And then House Bill 1522, TASB is recommending that in order to consider language to be posted on an agenda, that we include that they're submitted 10 calendar days before a meeting in order to allow time for administration to process everything and get it on a agenda, and then post it then 3 business days before it occurs. And then also Senate Bill 413 talks about roll call voting, and the update to voting has to either be by show of hands or verbally, some way that all votes are cast now, and those are noted in the minutes. In addition to that, some of the local changes we asked, one of the things that we asked was to move regular meetings to the 4th Tuesday of the month and workshops to the 2nd Tuesday of the month, just to get into that cadence of having a workshop and then a board meeting in that order. And then also, one of the other changes is that previously under our workshops, we had a clause in there that no voting shall take place during a workshop meeting. And that was just our own board's input into the policy years ago. And you've noticed a couple of times here pretty recently when we've needed to change a workshop to a board meeting so that we could get a vote that needed to happen before the next board meeting. And so this will allow, at times when needed, the board to take votes and take action on things during a workshop. And so those are the couple of changes that are local changes. I know that one's probably one of the ones that will affect you all the most, so happy to take any questions on that.
Questions?
Perfect. Moving on, BED, board meetings and public participation. This is just an update because of Senate Bill 12 requiring public comment to be at the beginning of board meetings, which you have already seen that we've implemented to be in compliance with the law. Then we have CJ, which is contracted services. This is an update also from Senate Bill 12 that contractors may not engage in or assign instructional activities that are prohibited by law or that include diversity, equity, and inclusion duties under Senate Bill 12, and the violations in a contractor in doing this would be termination of the contract.
Mr. Mintz?
Mr. Harper, just so for my own clarity, reference where it says engages in diversity, equity, and inclusion, that's kind of an incorporation by reference. The terminology, the definitions are listed somewhere else in the Senate bill, or?
Correct. There are and would be found in the legal policy. Yes.
And the entire contract would be subject to termination, not just the employee, or not just the contractor committing the violation.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Then we have CJA, Contracted Services Background Checks and Required Reporting. This is just a change in the subtopic name to better reflect what the policy is. You'll notice that there won't be any charge for this revision. It's just TASB doing this to make it a little easier to reference. So not a major change, just a change in the subtopic name. Then under CLE, which is Buildings, Grounds, and Equipment Management and Required Displays. Again, here the subtopic name has been changed just to more accurately describe the contents of this legal framework at this part in the code. And again, we're not being charged for that. TASB is just doing an update to make it a little easier for the user. Then under CQB, Technology, Resources, and Cybersecurity. These are recommended revisions to comply with House Bill 150. First, it moves cybersecurity training requirements from the Department of Information Services to the Texas Cyber Command, which is under this new law, where that is housed. And then second, include details about notification for cybersecurity incidents in addition to security breaches. So just adding that language in there.
Mr. President, I do have one. So reporting, I know that there's a significant liability, especially when there's a PII breach or something similar to that. Do we do training, and does everybody who needs to know? Because it says, timeframes established by law. That's a pretty important piece. And do we conduct training? Is that information kind of known when we do have a breach?
We do training. I might hand off to let someone else speak a little more to that, right behind me, about our training. But I will answer an affirmative, yes, we do trainings.
Good evening. So every year during our annual training, we have both cybersecurity training for all employees. And then just this last year, we also included training about protecting personal protected information. So both of those trainings are included in our annual training.
And is it, are you kind of the center, the touch point for making sure that all of this stuff is properly and timely reported should we have, again, a breach of?
Yes. We're required by law to report within a certain amount of time, and if indeed that were to happen, we would make sure that that's done in that time frame.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. The next part is, our next policy is CQD, Technology, Resources, and Artificial Intelligence. This new recommended policy, so the entire thing is new, addresses artificial intelligence training requirements. They're based off of House Bill 150 and House Bill 1500, as well as the use of artificial intelligence by district employees and students.
Questions?
Looking at the next policy, CSA, Facility Standards and Safety and Security. From Senate Bill 8, we have from the second special session prompted this inclusion of a section on designation and use of private spaces. And the superintendent is directed to designate private spaces in accordance with the law and develop regulations to ensure compliance. And I can say that Mr. Rich is already working on the regulations, so.
Mr. Mintz?
Could you just, what are private spaces? What is the legal, what's the definition of that?
Probably the easy use way of looking at a private space, certainly restrooms would be, but then also locker rooms. And so districts are looking at designating these as private spaces, and the designation can be changed. I guess the best example would be, I've heard this example from another district that is already doing this. They have a sign that designates a private space for, say, a boys' locker room for the boys' golf team. And then when the golf coach, who happens to be female, needs to speak to the boys and there's no other place for them to do, they can make sure that everyone is clothed and that sort of thing, and they can then designate it as a non-private space, and they can use that locker room to meet with the team. That is what the law allows. I'm not saying that we're doing that. I said that we are beginning to look at this, but this is an example of designating private spaces.
So are there certain restrictions? Is it kind of a reasonable expectation of privacy there, no cameras, that kind of thing?
Correct. And also the private spaces where a student who's born as a female may not enter a male private space and vice versa.
It just seems to me that there's certainly some potential for misuse there. So making those spaces kind of fungible seems a little concerning to me. So I would just ask that you keep an eye on that.
And maybe another example I'm thinking of, maybe a better one would be a dance hall there might be a time that all the locker rooms are being used and there is a individual sex dance group meeting and they might change in that space, but then at other times there might be co-ed and they have to use the locker rooms. So, but that is a potential for using the private designation. And that is all to comply with keeping a student who is born one gender out of the other locker room. Thank you. Okay, next one is CV, Facilities and Construction. This, first of all, is coming from Senate Bill 1173. The competitive purchasing threshold has changed from 50,000 to 100,000, as reflected in CH Legal. And the language at construction contracts is recommended here for revision here to refer to the legal threshold rather than the need to change the dollar amount every time the law changes. And then second, BJA establishes the superintendent's delegation authority, and so removing the or designee here just because it's already in BJA local, and that's something that TASB is slowly doing when there's a policy that's being updated and it says the superintendent or their designee, that's being updated to just point back to that one policy. The next board policy update is DBD, Employment Requirements and Restrictions, Conflict of Interest. This is a new recommended section of personnel services performed by an administrator, includes language relating to administrator work under House Bill 3372. This is, for lack of a better term, limiting moonlighting. A number of employees in the past were able to teach for, say, a TASB or TASBO conference, and no longer are they able to receive payment for that without coming before the board and receiving an exception to that. There are other ways that they can still teach, but no longer receive personal gain. They could receive a comp to the conference and attend to the rest of the conference, which helps with continuing hours and that sort of thing. But this does not allow them to receive personal benefit from it, as in payment for teaching and those kind of classes without coming to the board and receiving an exception.
Everybody good?
Good enough.
Mr. Gilchrist.
But they could come to the board and get an exception and get paid if it was a large enough event or something.
Absolutely. Yes, if they would rather do that, up to this point, since the law went into effect September 1st, we've had a couple of people asking about it, and we have recommended allowing the district to receive the comp for that, for somebody to attend that conference rather than them being paid individually. And so previously, they would take a day of vacation and then go and work there and get paid for it individually. And so they could still do that if that's what they would like. They could still come before the board and ask for that exception. But it is a new law saying that they can no longer be paid while representing the district there, essentially.
So, Mr. Harper, maybe, I'm not sure that I mean, why do we want to deny, I know you didn't pass the law. Maybe you did. Why would we deny our employees without coming all the way up to the school board? I mean, it seems to me if they took the day off, they could, and that day off was approved by their supervisor, why couldn't they go use their talent and skills for their benefit?
My understanding of the legislative intent was to keep that good old boy network from happening where this employee of the district is going to continue to teach and teach and teach and get money from an organization, and there being a weird relationship between that organization and a school district. I cannot argue with what you're saying.
So what's our left and right limits on this then?
So in order for them to take a personal day, essentially, and then go and receive payment for teaching a course, in TASBO, there's like a vast number of like all of our business side of things, and somebody who's actually been to a TASBO convention can speak more eloquently than me, but essentially if you go to any of the business services, there are courses that a number of our employees can go to gain training and professional
An
development.
example would be like our Director of Transportation go teach on routing and how to do that. There's ethics courses that get taught all the time, business ethics courses, things like that.
But, so I guess my question is, can we just say, we don't want to do this?
So the new law says that in order for them to go and take a personal day and then go and be paid for it, they have to come to the board and
They
receive.
have to come to the board?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That is, and this policy is implementing that, and I will pass it to board counsel very quickly.
Just real quickly, 3372 is the anti-moonlighting statute, and there isn't a lot of flexibility for school boards, okay? The statute says that anybody, assistant superintendent and above, cannot engage in any moonlighting that is engaging in specific work for this school district, working with a vendor who works with this school district, any school district, a regional service center, and I'd have to look at the statute. But so it's not like just saying if an assistant superintendent wanted to go work at Home Depot or Dillard's, they could do that. But if they want to engage with a vendor who works with public schools, basically, right? If you have, and it's limited to administrators, not teachers. It has to be defined as an administrator, so someone who is not I think they define administrator as someone whose primary position isn't classroom instruction. So administrators, what we think is administrators. Those administrators between lower level administrators up to assistant superintendents can get permission from this board to work for vendors who don't work in this school district. Nobody can work for a vendor who is an administrator who is a vendor for this school district, okay? But if it's outside of this school district, say they want to go work for a turf company, and that company does not work with this school district, they could come to this board if they are below assistant superintendent, and the board would have to make a determination that is not a conflict of interest. They're going to do it on their personal time, and you could approve that. But that's what they have to do, and that's what the statute requires.
Can we delegate it?
No.
Thank you very little.
Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, sir.
Mr. Rainwater?
Don't go yet, Julie. I have a question about
Okay.
if the employee takes a personal day and is not docked his daily salary, then our district is paying him his daily salary to go present.
Right. I think really, without getting into whether you can take a day or not take a day, the first issue is, can you even do the work? Okay? The first issue is, does that vendor or organization that your administrator working with, do they work with this school district? Do they get paid from this school district? That's a non-starter for any administrator, off the top. If it's someone who doesn't work with this school district, maybe they're going to go give a presentation. I think that's the good example that Mr. Harper was giving. A presentation for some organization separately, not a vendor for the school district. I think that's a determination that the board can generally make or delegate to your administration about what is our practice about letting someone invoke their leave and get an honorarium or something like that. We know you can't tell an employee, you can't tell an employee when they can and can't use their leave, for what purposes. You don't get to make that determination. But you could possibly talk to them about whether they're going to get the honorarium or not. But under 3372, the specific issue is really about can they even work if they're an administrator in any other capacity that works with public school districts. And they, oh yeah, there's a $10,000 fine. The good news is, it's no fine for you. It's the fine for the employee. So I would suggest that it's probably likely that if an employee is aware of this, which they should be, they're going to be driving this conversation, right? Because unless you're making, you know, $15,000 it's not worth it, right? So unless you're making good money, you're not even really going to chance it because, you know, you would want this board's approval. So, you know, if you're making $1 million on your honorarium, maybe it'd be worth the risk. But otherwise, they're going to be coming to you guys and saying, hey, I want to do my side gig, but they have to be below that level of assistant superintendent. So like your campus administrators, you know, those mid-tier administrators, okay?
Madam Capito?
You made a comment that the employees should know this, but how would they know this? I mean, I just want to make sure that we're helping protect our staff, because how would they actually know that? I mean, unless they're following legislative laws, or, I mean, unless somebody has said something to them. I mean, I was a teacher in this district, and I did go present at conferences,
Right.
different things, and so I don't know how I would have known that.
So it's not for teachers.
I'm sorry,
That's
but
good
even
enough.
principals or
Yeah,
whoever
I mean, I guess maybe I've overstated it. I hope they are talking with their organizations. I hope they are staying up with what is lawful for them to do as administrators in a school district. But, I mean, certainly your HR could make that clear as well.
I would also say from personal experience here in the district, when this passed, we had 1 or 2 employees come to ask, hey, what's going on here? Type deal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think it's pretty well being talked about amongst administrators. I think administrators who are doing other duties are aware. I know my phone blew up for a good 4 weeks over it, so I know that a lot of people, yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Sure. Thank you.
I think we're good.
The next one, still on the same slide, DEC, compensation and benefits, leaves and absences. These are updates prompted by House Bill 2, recommending revisions to include the daily rate of pay under the definitions section, as well as a section about concurrent use of paid leave during family medical leave for classroom teachers. Previously, our policy said that you would use it concurrently, that if you had any paid leave and you were taking FMLA, that you were to take those concurrently. Now, with the update to the law, we need to allow a teacher to choose whether he or she wants to use them concurrently. And
But I believe
Mr.
that's only
Baker's-
for pregnancy, birth.
Correct. And the adoption of a child.
Adoption of a child.
There's very specific there. But now they have the choice if they are pregnant, having a child, or adopting a child. They now have a choice whether they want to use those concurrently or use all the FMLA and then use their paid leave.
Madam Capito?
I'm sorry, I need to rewind back to the last one real quick. I'm so sorry. What about if the administrator's teaching at a college?
It would all depend on, I'll let board counsel speak also, but it would depend on whether we are doing business with that.
Like CTC, if we have our administrators teaching and we have contracts with CTC, how does that affect our administrators?
If it's a school duty, it wouldn't be moonlighting separately. If they are just working for a university separately, truly moonlighting, right? I work 9 to 5 here, and then I go teach a culinary class, and I'm a math teacher.
Okay.
That would be something that they would want to look into. Now, it'd have to be, again, an administrator, not a teacher, and it would have to be something if that CTC has a vendor-type relationship with this school district too. You'd have to look at that. I will tell you the legislative history on this and intention is a little unclear because the first drafts of the statute said higher ed. Later drafts did not use higher ed. But if I have a $10,000 fine weighing on it, I'm coming to this board asking for permission if I want
I
to.
mean, I'm just thinking of an administrator who is possibly teaching night classes at CTC. We have currently early college that gets CTC, so we pay CTC, and so they're a
Right.
vendor with us. So, I mean.
Yeah, it's
I'm sure-
problematic.
That's problematic for.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that hurts my heart. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's a problematic bill for certain circumstances. And I think if this board had specific questions, if someone came to you for an exception, we would probably want to have a discussion about whether that is an appropriate moonlighting activity or not. Okay? But right now, I think the question just is, should you update your policy to reflect those? Yeah. Yeah, there's.
And certainly the policy updates are to bring us in compliance with the law. Any other questions on this slide? Moving on to DFBB, term contracts and non-renewal. Based on Senate Bill 12, engaging or assigning diversity, equity, and inclusion duties, as well as instructional activities that are prohibited law, we're recommending inclusion in the list of reasons for term contract employees may be non-renewed. So adding those things that are now lawfully not permissible, adding those to our list of things that an employee could be non-renewed from their contracts. And then also the language around a disability and the ability to perform the essential functions of the job, just amending that language on that item for clarity. Moving on to DGBA, Personnel Management, Relations, Employee Complaints and Grievances. Here are recommended consideration for revising the policy based or prompted by the portions of Senate Bill 12. And so you'll notice that each of the grievances, DGBA, which is for employees, FNG, which is for parents or students, and then GF, which are public complaints, each of those see fairly significant changes.
I want to go back. I was reading, and I want to talk about FMLA for a moment. We went past that one, right?
Well, we talked about it, but I'm
Okay.
happy to go back.
All right, thank you. So to make sure I understand, well, again, understanding you're not the guy who passed the bill, can you explain to me why we are forcing, why employees have to take FMLA concurrently with paid leave? Like,
So previously, our policy stated that if you were to take FMLA, you would take it concurrently with any paid leave and I will say, I think most employees are going to choose, if they had a choice, to take the paid leave anyway, because FMLA is only protected leave, it's not paid leave. But this now changes our policy to allow for an employee to choose if they're pregnant, giving birth to a child, or adopting a child, whether they would like to use it concurrently or to use it subsequently, essentially. Let the FMLA run and then take the paid leave.
right, but that's for pregnancy, adoption. Why would we not make that available to everyone? I mean, I think employees would like to have that option.
Certainly,
And it also seems to me that we're saying pregnancy, maternity, or paternity leave, like, I get that. But, I mean, that's as equally as impactful on somebody's life as dealing with a bout of cancer or a family member having to deal with it. And if they can financially withstand that, why would we not give them that option?
Sure, I mean, I think that's a managerial question. When you have an instructor out for 12 weeks and then another 180 days, I mean, you just have to ask yourself, if you're not required by law to do that, what does this board want to do? And that's a philosophical question. Because what it does, for example, it substantially increases the amount of time an employee is out.
Right.
Yeah.
And the 180 days she referenced would be temporary disability leave.
Oh, well, or I was just suggesting, a lot of times because employees can accrue and bring leave, I have seen a number of circumstances. That is a good point. Temporary disability is 180 days. I was just picking that number out. But typically, what employers do from a managerial standpoint and to manage absences, right, is you get 12 weeks. And as Mike said, most people typically choose to use their pay to do that because 12 weeks without pay can be difficult, right? If they didn't, though, what the board would have to ask itself is, can we sustain basically doubling or tripling the amount of time that employees are out? And that's just a philosophical question you would have to ask yourself.
Okay, I guess, I understand it, and I don't, I think I would like to at least give employees that option. And maybe there's some way we can limit it, but just forcing them to do it, to me, especially if we're acknowledging, we're saying, this one little carve-out, pregnancy, adoption, is more important than other things. Like, I don't think that's necessarily true. So I would just like to see that expanded in a responsible way to all the other employees. I'm just one of 7, and I think I would actually like to hear from my colleagues who have actually run a school before. But anyway, that's my thought. Thank you.
Any other questions?
And I would add that would impact a classroom teacher. Not only are you allowing them 12 weeks off, but then you're extending them longer, so there's a substitute in that role, because FMLA, obviously a protected role, or protected, you're saving a spot for them to come back to. And so I think in the past, we've looked at that as a management way of controlling how long someone's able to take out. But it is, under the law, certainly you have FMLA, and then on top of that, the temporary disability, which could run 180 days for a classroom teacher. So, at a certain point, there's that, just to give you the counter side of some of the thinking there, not to argue with you and disagree with you. So,
No, and that's exactly what I want to hear back. So I appreciate, okay, nothing, I'm happy with it. I'll talk to my colleagues and the rest of the board offline. Thank you.
thank you. Believe, okay. That was DEC. Okay. Moving on to the next one, DFBB, I believe. I think we talked about that, kind of just updating that language. And then DGBA, I mentioned that each of our grievance policies are being updated due to Senate Bill 12. Now looking at DH, employee standards of conduct, we see Senate Bill 706, the weapons prohibited exceptions portion of this standard of conduct. Senate Bill 7 regards reciprocity with other handgun license from another state. So now under law, if you have a handgun license from another state, there's a reciprocity there, and so it's accepted here. So it's just updating our policies to conform with new laws. Then second update to DH, prohibited classroom instruction and activities, talking again about prohibited diversity, equity, and inclusion duties, as well as conversations with students about social transitioning that are each illegal now under Senate Bill 12. And then the third thing, update to DH, is relationships with students, addressing the requirement under Senate Bill 571 regarding the notice of suspected misconduct by an educator or district service provider. It's adding that language in there of district service provider, of informing the parent.
Questions? Mr. Rainwater?
Is this about the school marshal program?
I'm sorry?
Carrying of handguns, is this about the school
No,
marshal?
this one specifically, if you have a license to carry a handgun, you can leave that locked in your trunk. And the previous law said that anyone with a Texas handgun license could do that, and it's not breaking policy having that locked away in your trunk. And now it's just adding that reciprocity with other states.
Okay.
Because the state now acknowledges all of those other handgun license from Louisiana or whatever.
Thank you.
Mr. Mintz?
Quick question on, I'm looking at page 72, it's DH, reference social transitioning, is that kind of an incorporation by reference? It's defined somewhere else?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And you'll notice TASB policies try to do that, is to leave the definition somewhere else, rather, if there's an update to that law, rather than having to change it in multiple places. So, good question. Next policy being updated is EEP, Instructional Arrangements and Lesson Plans. Here is a new local policy that's being recommended to include, based on Senate Bill 12, on instructional plans and course syllabi, about having those, teachers having those available to their supervisors, as well as sharing those with parents.
Questions?
Next slide, we've got a couple of slides left here, but trying to move along. EFA, Instructional Resources and Instructional Materials. In accordance with Senate Bill 12, the parental request for instructional material reviews. Policy requires the superintendent to develop administrative regulations to ensure that parents or guardians can request review of instructional materials individually or through a petition process with other parents. And so just bringing this into line with current law.
Questions?
Next policy, EHBAF, Special Education Video Audio Monitoring. Two changes here. The first one coming from House Bill 2, recommended to update language regarding special education classrooms. Previously, it was self-contained rooms. Now it's expanded that a little bit now, and TEA is working on the admin regulation to define that as a room where 50% of the students are self-contained, looking at those classes where kids have out classes, so that you still have a parent request video monitoring in that classroom. And then the second part of that update on this policy is update the time frame for reporting suspected misconduct of child abuse as required by Senate Bill 571. Previously, teachers were bound and a duty to report within 48 hours, and the legislature has updated that to 24 hours. So once you suspect child abuse or neglect, you are required now to report that within 24 hours, and just updating that timeline. Next policy, EIA, Academic Achievement, Grading Progress Reports to Parents. Both of these come from revisions of Senate Bill 12, requirement that each parent of a student be afforded the opportunity for at least 2 in-person conferences within the student's teacher per year, or with the student's teacher per year. And then secondly, academic dishonesty language is recommended that it indicates the use of artificial intelligence without permission constitutes academic dishonesty.
Questions?
Then also policy FA, Parent Rights and Responsibilities. This is a new policy completely, is recommended for inclusion to address Senate Bill 12 requirement to establish a parent portal on the district's website through which parents may submit comments to administrators or the board.
Questions?
Slide 6 here, we have FEF, the next policy, attendance and release time. This is a local policy, is recommended for inclusion in the district's manual to reflect Senate Bill 1049 requirements regarding release time courses. Next policy is FFAC, Wellness and Health Services and Medical Treatment. A recommendation revision to medication provided by a parent due to Senate Bill 920, which now allows school employees, including nurses, to administer non-prescription medication in accordance with legal requirements. Next policy, FFB, Student Welfare Crisis Intervention. As required by House Bill 2, a provision is recommended for inclusion addressing the required notification that must be provided to teaching staff when a threat is made against the campus. So notifying staff members of threats to campus. Then FFF, student welfare and student safety, another recommendation prompted by House Bill 2 regarding notifying a parent of a student with whom an employee or service provided is alleged to have engaged in misconduct. And what y'all are all, I'm sure, happy to hear from me. We're getting to the second to last slide here, and they're getting less on a slide. So FFG, student welfare, child abuse and neglect. Again, a change to reporting of child abuse that are required to report within 24 hours. And then a revision to making a report, a change in the law of the definition of law enforcement agency. Then FNG, here's our students' rights and responsibilities, student and parent complaint grievances. As I mentioned previously, Senate Bill 12 made major changes to each of our grievance policies. Employees were under DGBA, and here we have the student parent ones. And so substantial revisions, you'll see a lot of red line in this one to reflect the requirements of Senate Bill 12. Then next one is FO, student discipline. You see minor edits here recommended to the language regarding video and audio monitoring that make such monitoring permissive and clarify what should happen when video and audio recording equipment is in use, giving us some parameters here of, first of all, letting it be known under the new law that we can surveil through video monitoring our campuses, and setting up some parameters here about using surveillance videos. And this is prompted by Senate Bill 12 as well. And the last two, but I bring slide 8 with GF public complaints. Again, our complaints for public members, updating because of Senate Bill 12, a lot of revisions here, much like the employee as well as the student. And then GKA, local community relations conduct on school premises. Again, you see another repeat here about Senate Bill 706, that language about handguns and the reciprocity of handgun licenses updated here in this policy as well.
Mr. Rainwater.
I think I know the answer, but is it true that none of these apply to private or charter schools?
Not none of them. I couldn't say off the top of my head which ones do or don't. The ones that don't apply to charter schools are eligible for exemption under your District of Innovation, and we've talked about that. And there are some in this list that are eligible for exemption under the DOI, which we've discussed at times. So some of them are, do not apply to charter schools, but some of them do.
So does that mean we're going to have to go back and look again at our District of Innovation guidelines to align with these new practices to serve the needs of charter schools?
Well, if you amended your current District of Innovation, what would happen is if you adopt these policies as they're drafted today and you adopt those at your next meeting, once you amend your DOI, you will have to come back and change other policies perhaps, right? For example, if you chose not to change your grievance policies, that's one of the examples, right? If you adopt the current draft, you would adopt that today, that's the law anyway, that's the law now, okay? So these are a little bit behind, right? But if this board decides to adopt a District of Innovation plan and approves that, then you would come back and you would modify these policies.
So Joey, is it likely we could adopt all of these through DOI and apply them to charter schools and private schools?
Well,
them?
our DOI does not affect a charter school, right? It's
So
the
there's no-
inverse. It's the inverse, right? It's, when a school district is eligible to exempt itself from state statutes, it just means that we are given the same flexibility, perhaps, that a charter school is. So the example is, if the statute does not equally apply to a charter school, we have the option to consider whether we want to exempt ourselves from that statute.
And what if we choose not to?
Then you follow the rule.
The charter school?
No, just us.
Our
We
school.
don't govern, this decision will not affect any charter school. Are you saying are you talking about your 1882?
That was the first thing that came to mind, but then I was understanding if we had a DOI and we could adopt some changes through the District of Innovation, that we could apply these also to charter school, because, or not.
I'd have to take that under advisement. I'd have to look into that, about how a District of Innovation, and I don't know, a little bit off agenda. We may want to address that at our next discussion about that. But I'd have to look at that. I don't have that,
Thank
I
you.
don't have that answer off the top of my head. I'm sorry. You've stumped me, Mr. Rainwater.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Harper.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now move to item C, which is discussion of reciprocal use. I'm sorry, Madam Secretary.
For consent agenda next time, or are we taking them one by one, or how are we going to do that?
I'm glad you helped me out on that, because, since Madam Vice President is not here, actually, at the conclusion of the meeting, I was going to have a discussion with Dr. Davis as well as Ms. Weaver about we may not have a consent agenda. I know Madam Vice President expressed some concerns about wanting to be able to vote, but if she wasn't here, the minutes, and so it's a formality, so there may be no consent agenda next week. But it would have been on there, would have been the plan, but thank you for that catch. Anything else? All right, we're now going to move to C, discussion of the reciprocal use and child care program agreement with the Armed Services YMCA. Mr. Rich, welcome.
Thank you, sir. Since April of 2014, the district and the school district and the Armed Services YMCA have had an agreement in place that allows the district to utilize the Armed Services YMCA natatorium to serve high school and middle school swim programs, as well as the elementary school swim program, at a cost of $200,000 per year. The Armed Services YMCA pool primarily serves as a practice pool for the Harker Heights High School and Chaparral High School programs. We have also annually executed agreements which have allowed the Armed Services YMCA to utilize district-owned facilities to provide before and after-school childcare for families at no cost to the YMCA. In an effort to provide assurances to both parties related to the availability of facilities for our various uses, the district and Armed Services YMCA negotiated a 10-year reciprocal use agreement, which would, if approved, would become effective June 1st of this year. This agreement will provide us, the district, with priority access to the Armed Services YMCA natatorium at no cost to the district, and it'll also increase the KISD employee discount offered by Armed Services YMCA from 30% to 40% beginning January 1st of 2027. The administrative recommendation is to place this on the next consent agenda if we have one, and approve the reciprocal use and child care program agreement with Armed Services YMCA.
Questions for Mr. Rich from trustees? Thank you, sir. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move now to agenda item 5, discussion of future board meeting agendas and trustee remarks. Madam Capito.
I hope everybody had a great and wonderful break, and I'm looking forward to a successful semester.
Mr. Mintz.
Nothing, thank you, sir.
Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. President. When the time is appropriate, I'd like to get an update or know when we get an update on the benchmarks for, especially, my focus is for the students in the middle, our middle school babies. I'd like to see their beginning of year progress to the middle of the year. And did they just finish the map testing last couple of weeks, or are they in the process of doing it, or, can someone help me with that timeline? But anyway, I'd like to add that to the agenda when appropriate.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We have a system scorecard priority 1 update on February the 10th. In addition, we will be providing some more specific campus-based data in our board brief on January the 23rd.
Thank you.
Thank you,
No
Dr.
problem.
Osborne.
Thank you.
Anything else, Madam Secretary?
No, thank you, sir.
Mr. Gilchrist?
I have nothing to say, Mr. President.
Mr. Rainwater?
I don't want to cross into the management guidelines, Dr. Davis, but when you have time and when you think it's appropriate, I would really like to see some hardcore based measurements of the effectiveness of the Capturing Kids' Hearts programs in our school. I think we have a 2-year with them, and I know it comes from a government. I don't know what part of the government. Some government spending, and it's not district monies, but it is our employees' times. I just want to make sure that's the right thing we're doing. When you have time, sir. Thank you.
Dr. Osborne?
Thank you, Mr. President. System scorecard priority 1.1A will provide updated data on CKH, and then we can provide subsequent data as well. No problem.
Welcome to 2026. Go ahead.
They won't get too far in it, but yes, an update's coming, and then I'll certainly be transparent with the board as it relates to my perspective. But I want to see the data first as it relates to the value add of Capturing Kids' Hearts and a plan going forward, right? So it's my understanding, and team, please help me, but how long have we had Capturing Kids' Hearts?
Second year in the third year, but in the first year it was training at the upper senior cabinet and board
right.
level. So campus-based initiation, 2 years.
Gotcha. All right. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
So for me, I just want to say welcome to 2026 to everybody. Just an excuse to do better things. That's what a new year brings, and so hopefully our district is focused on that. But on a more somber note, I just want to send my prayers out to the Shine family in our community. We lost a tremendous man. My heart just goes out to their family. They've done so much for this district, and they've been active in this community for as long as I've been alive. And so Mr. Shine, as I know him, rest in peace. And like I said, prayers out to that family during this trying time for them. And Mr. Superintendent, that's all I have.
Thank you, President. Board President, again, just I want to echo those sentiments. Certainly, our prayers are certainly up for the Shine family. And just would like to welcome the staff back. It's our first board meeting after the new year. Happy New Year to everyone. We are what I would consider in the third and fourth quarter of the school year, and lots is going on. And just encouraging everyone to keep forging ahead. Lots of work is going on as we complete this year while also planning for next school year. And so the staff is super, super busy. And again, I just want to applaud the effort of our staff. So thank you all, and our teachers. Thank you.
All right, the board will now go back to agenda item number 2, closed session. Joey, I've called all these, so I don't have to state all these again, correct?
You've already called in, you could say that, are you saying we're about to go back?
Yes.
You don't have to read the whole section, but I would like you to designate which particular.
So in the first session, we discussed 2A, 2B, and 2D, and now we're going to discuss 2C, which I'll call, Mr. Superintendent, correct me if I'm wrong, 2C, which is deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee as allowed by Texas Government Code 551.074. Is that the only one we need to call?
I would also call A again.
A, call A. You can just call the number, sir. You can just say,
Okay.
we're going out under 551071.
There you go. We're going out, we're going in closed session under 551.071 and 551.074. And the time is now 6:56 PM, and we're in closed session. We will go into superintendent's conference room. The time is now 8:06 PM, and we are reconvening from closed session. No action or voting took place in closed session. We'll now move to agenda item number 6. Madam Capito.
I move that we adjourn.
We have a motion by Madam Capito. We have a second by Secretary Adams to adjourn the board meeting on Tuesday, January 13th at 8:07 PM. All those in favor, show of hands. We have 6 in favor, none in opposition, 1 absent and not participating, and that's Vice President Susan Jones. We are adjourned at 8:07 PM. Thank you.